Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great morning so far. Welcome to you all to the morning show. My name's Phil Stepney, and it's always good to be here with you guys. Let's see what we see. We'll move from one camera to the next as usual. It's always nice to have a good look in as many cameras as possible. It all depends, I guess, on what's happening at each one. I thought we'd start off at Tau. It's just a wonderful, relaxed scene here with lots of zebras, two ostriches that seem to have taken up what looks like residence here. Although it's a bit of a pity, I haven't seen those babies, the ostrich chicks that were around 2-3 weeks ago. There were some older ones, so I wonder if they've just moved off on their own. Anyways, there were quite a few of them. I'm sure some of them are still around. We'll just have to keep looking out for them. There's some wildebeest with the zebras on the left. Lots of activity this morning at the waterhole. I think there's some drops of rain on the lens. It looks like there might have been some rain overnight. There's been lots and lots of rain in the northern part of the country. In fact, the rain extends right into Namibia, where the desert is receiving a lot of rain. In fact, it's flooding. Some of the rivers are flowing. And Tau is actually not that far south. It's slightly east of Namibia. The central part of southern Africa is getting a good dose of rain, which is fantastic. See those two very young wildebeest. I haven't seen too many other youngsters. There's a zebra foal having a drink. Really good conditions for those youngsters, giving them the best opportunity to reach adulthood. This kind of weather, lots of rain, lots of grass, gives mum the opportunity to produce good amounts of milk. Also gives them the strength to run away should they need to. And once again, that group of pied crows are in the same place. I'm not sure if anyone knows the collective noun for crows. A murder. Quite apt. Kind of dark, but quite apt. It is quite interesting that we always seen them, or the last 3 or 4 days, they've always been in the same place. Those of you that have just joined us on YouTube and Facebook, welcome to you all. Lovely to have you on the show. We've just spent the first little while here at Taupan. It seems like those 4 or 5 crows have doubled. There's obviously something really delicious going on there. The only thing I can think of is maybe termites, although not too many other animals have congregated. Sometimes after the rains you get the alienates, the kings and queens of the termite world that erupt. And it's wonderful feeding for birds, reptiles, even primates get stuck in there, baboons and monkeys. At the moment, it looks like the crows have got the front seat there. I'd love to take a walk there, take a look what's causing them to be there. That'll have to wait for another day. Just going to let the camera pan across. Take a bit of time here Beautiful morning, lots of zebras, comings and goings. Good morning, Will. Nice to have you on the show again. Glad you really enjoy the shows. It's always nice to share enthusiasm of nature around the world. Got a couple of videos. We'll have a look at some highlights a little later, but those two ostriches were seen taking a dust bath. We'll take a good look at that a bit later. And they certainly have been around for the last couple of days. Quite an interesting animal to see on a regular basis. Nothing much going on the right-hand side of the pan. That's okay. Let's jump across to Tembe, where the usual suspects are around. A good number of elephant bulls having a good old spa session. It's also a wonderful waterhole just to listen out to some of the morning sounds. Lots of birds. Hear the elephants in the water. It's always lovely to see what we see, but I do really enjoy the things we hear. The microphones we have out there in the bush are truly incredible, just as incredible, I think, as the cameras. And the sense of hearing is something one often overlooks. Maybe one of these days we'll get technology right to enhance the sense of smell. But just hearing those elephants in the waterholes splashing around, the birds in the background, really does feel like it brings us closer to actually being out there. Look at this big tusker coming out the water. Beautiful specimen. He's on his way to being one of the typical Tembe big tuskers. Again, as I often mention, it's quite tricky here at Tembe to gauge the age of the elephant, because even though that one there might only be in his maybe late 30s going into 40s, he's got some really big ivory. Like really good condition. The rest of his body, youngster, maybe coming into his prime, still got quite a lot of growing to do. Good morning, Les from the UK, Shelley from Colorado. It's always great to see people from all around the world tuning in to these live productions, live broadcasts. And I do really enjoy that concept of everyone sitting and watching and hopefully understanding that whatever we see is what's been going on forever and a day. And the fact that we have technology out there, it's quite incredible and a wonderful privilege. These animals have been roaming these open spaces way before any of us have been around. And it's really quite special to share it with everyone around the world. Looks like it's going to be a really hot day here in southern Maputoland, as it's also known. The area that Tembe's in, the northeastern side of South Africa. Lovely, humid, tropical environment. Looks like there's a bit of blue sky breaking through the clouds. I reckon it's very, very humid there today. No chance of drying out in Tembe. There's the waterhole is in the northeastern part of South Africa, just below the border of Mozambique, very close to the Indian Ocean. If you pull a map out there, you'll see there's a little corner that's squashed from the left to the bottom left-hand side by Swaziland and Mozambique and the Indian Ocean. That's where Tembe is. It's probably about 380 odd kilometers north of Durban. I don't know if any of that makes sense from a geographical point of view, but pick it out on the map there. You'll see there's a corner. Beautiful part of the country, really good for wildlife, birding in particular, and hugely diverse when it comes to different ecosystems. These elephants in the foreground here have found the water outlet. They're quite picky drinkers. If they have the choice, they'll try and find the pipes that feed the water holes. And that's where they'll try and get the water as it comes out. Okay, well, I don't think these elephants are going to go anywhere too soon. I'd like to just take a look at the Olifants River Cam. It's always nice to have a pan across here just in case we spot something. Also, wonderful camera to just have a listen. The wildlife around. Beautiful clouds in the background. Let's have a pan through here just in case. Such a beautiful picture that, with those dark clouds, steel blue clouds in the background and the contrasts of the green. I've got a great snapshot to share with you that's quite similar to that shot. I think they've had some rain over the evening, but now the clouds have moved on. And again, I suspect the temperature's rising pretty steadily towards 100, maybe even more. Really hot part of the country. In comparison to Tembe, this is probably about 250 odd, maybe 300 kilometers west and slightly north. So more or less in the center of the country, but also quite far north. Phil, I see your comment here that you have 4 feet of snow. Hell of a contrast. Hope you've got something warm on. Maybe watching the cameras will make you feel a little warmer. That was a waterbuck in the shade there. Way too hot in the sun. It's quite interesting over the months as the summers crept on. When it's really dry in the middle of winter, which is June, July for us, the foliage on the edge of the banks is almost non-existent. We often do see a lot more waterbuck and parla bushbuck, but right now the animals are quite hard to spot and also quite well dispersed. No need to be in these thickets. It's quite a dangerous place to be. Spend too much time in that long grass. Good place for leopards to catch you out. Just a beautiful image there. Love that contrast. Can't see any crocodiles on the riverbanks today. We'll keep an eye out because they obviously chop and change. Yesterday there was a wonderful big croc out on one of the banks. I wonder where he is today. Folks, we're going to go across to Nkoropan. I just want to do the same thing there. Just have a good look around. Again, the grass is really long. Bushes nice and thick. It is very beautiful, but does make it quite tricky to spot things. So let's have a little look around here, see if anybody's around. Okay, seems to be quiet on the Nkora front. Not a problem. We're going to go across to some of the highlight videos that I've chosen. Some videos are just interesting and to watch, some entertaining behavior, just like this of these two ostriches. They're the same ostriches we saw on the live cam a bit earlier on the show. It's the male having a dust bath on the right, female will shortly start to join him. And it's quite interesting. It's how it's using its wing to scrape up the dust and get the sand really stuck into the feathers. And that essentially acts as an abrasive to help get rid of ectoparasites. So we often see smaller birds or some spur fowls, francolins doing the same thing, guinea fowls do it. But yeah, it's quite nice to see in slow motion on the big birds. There's another thing that birds do to keep clean. That is called anting. So they'll often lie up in an ant's nest or even pick ants up and put them on their backs. And then the ants give off a formalin, which deters the ectoparasites. So keeping busy, trying to keep as clean as possible, just like the elephants, warthogs, just in a different way here. There's another shot of ostriches, same ostriches, in a different environment, slightly greener. But just watch how the lapwings are bombing them. It's rather cheeky. And the ostrich male trying to defend his ego there, I think. But I suspect that there could be a nest, the lapwing nest. Those are blacksmith lapwings. And whenever anything comes near their nest, they're quite famous for being rather aggressive to try and chase off whatever it is that could stand on the nest. In this case, it's not that the ostrich will feed on the eggs or eat the chicks. But if they don't see the eggs, they're really camouflaged. They could stand on them. So lapwings trying to chase them off as they would raptors. And I've even seen lapwings try to change the course that elephants are on if they look like they're on their way or on a collision course with the nest, they'll try and move them off. Sticking with the birding theme for now, there's quite an interesting clip here of the weavers that we often see mostly at Tembe. But the left-hand weaver, so the one we can see on the left there, is interesting. It's a southern-masked weaver. So southern-masked weavers have a slightly darker, a redder eye. It's tricky to see, but if you look at the one on the right, it has a little white eye. So the one on the right with the white eye is a lesser-masked weaver. He's got more black. The hood, or his mask, goes all the way into the middle of his head. The one on the left, the southern masked weaver, has just a little bit of black on the top of its beak. A little bit bigger, but as you can see here, they don't mind nesting in the same tree and in the same environment. But it does make identification quite tricky. But the Zoomy here managed to get wonderful footage of them making the nest, as well as a bit of identification. Beautiful yellow color. And also quite interesting to note this tree. We've zoomed in nice and deeply. You can see that it's got quite characteristic zigzag branches. So this tree is called a buffalo thorn. The fruits that it has and fall to the ground, buffalo do like to eat the fruit. But it's also quite an interesting, from a cultural point of view, it's called a mlahlankosi, which is the local Zulu language. And it's very much a spiritual tree. Those zigzag branches symbolize life and the journey that life takes. Never straight, always corners to be had. And if one could zoom in just a little bit more, you'll see that they have quite an interesting thorn pattern. There's one thorn that points forward and one thorn that points back. And that's also a concept of life. Always move forward, but don't forget your past, as it might come back to stab you. There's one more highlight I'll share with you before we just go back towards the live cameras. And this time we're at Olifants River. This was just the other night. Some wonderful footage of a leopard coming down the path. And watch how it sense marks. Surprised that the baboons haven't spotted it. Remember, it's completely dark. We just have infrared. You see how it scrapes the soil up? Really important part of scent marking. So leopards will, and lions do the same thing. They scratch the soil, making it nice. There goes a baboon. Sense the leopard's presence. But as it scrapes the soil up, it makes nice, soft soil so that the scent can actually seep deeper into the ground and therefore last longer. That's the spectacular predator. Always an extra privilege to see these sorts of things. Let's listen out and just watch it as it moves past the camera. As it walked past that branch, you see it just picked up the scent, and now it picks its tail up and it's going to spray. You see that? So as he's walking by, he picked up that it's most likely his own scent, but sometimes he'll be looking out for female scent, for other male scent. He understood or registered that that's his spot, walked past, pick up his tail. Bit of a party trick. They can bend their penis backwards to spray scent onto either bushes or a branch. And it's really important that, because the higher you spray, the more dominant you are. Always nice to see that sort of behavior. And again, completely undisturbed by our presence, just watching the behavior that's been going on for eons. There's actually one more clip I'd like to share with you before we go to the live stream. Just have a look at this lioness this time and have a listen out for her call. There she's scent marking as well. Same process, but this time it's quite clear. Just scratching the ground, urinating so that urine then stays and sticks around for longer. And that audio, just by the way, that roaring is also got to do with territorial communication, and in that case audio communication. She's advertising her presence within an area. Could also be to find the rest of her pride. And those are the two ways that predators will communicate: it's chemical communication, scent marking, or audio communication. In their case, or lion's case, big roars that can be heard depending on the conditions, but up to 5, sometimes even 10 kilometers at a time. So we're going to just go back to Tembe. Just want to see if there's any change there. Nope. Elephants still doing what they do almost best. I'd say what they do best is feed, eat. But I reckon close second behind that is spending time at the waterhole, cleaning themselves, rolling around in the mud, throwing sand on themselves. The constant and wonderful call of the emerald-spotted wood dove. There's also a yellow-billed greenbill calling. The woolly-necked stork in the foreground. There are weavers, or at least the weaver nests. Such a wonderful scene. Folks, I've got 2 snapshots I'd like to share with you just before we finish the show for the day. The first one is also of elephants, this time a tau, taken by Lucy. Thanks so much for this snapshot. And yeah, the caption, so many elephants. I got an average of 42 after counting 3 times. So I think it's safe to say there's at least 40 odd elephants in this group. And it is a wonderful sight to see. Lots of activity, lots of different age groups. And typically when you see herds of this size, you can get immediate family herds of 40 or 50 or so, but it's more likely and quite typical where 2 or 3 family units meet each other at the waterhole. They have no problem with each other. They're probably quite used to each other's presence. And when they do congregate, they get together and there's lots of rumbling and trumpeting. They're very social animals. But when they move off, you'll often see them move off in different directions as immediate family groups of, maybe between 7 and 15. That's quite a usual number. And in this case, they've all gathered, having a drink and a dust bath. Wonderful scene. And talking about wonderful scenes, I mentioned a snapshot taken on the olifants. Ursula Vesta, wonderful snapshot here. Beautiful pic of the olifants and that view down the river. And I agree with your caption. You must take the snapshot. Thank you so much for sharing these snapshots. Anyone on the Africam website, keep snapping away. It's always really interesting to go through them, and there are lots of wonderful shots. Always like to share them with all of you, the viewers around the world. So I'm going to leave you with this beautiful picture. We've come to the end of the show for today. It's always a great time of day to be here with you, and I look forward to catching up with you all on Monday. Hope you have a great weekend. Although some of you sound like it's a pretty cold area, stay indoors, hot cup of something, and watch the cameras. That's my suggestion. Folks, have a great day further, and we'll catch up with you on Monday.